Mailbag time here at the Cleveland Browns Report. We're going to answer questions that you, the viewers, asked during our live show, which airs every single Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. So tune in next time if you've got a question you want answered. Now, let's start off with this question coming in from Chef Ruben, talking about Perrion Winfrey. Now, like I said, we are filming this during our live show on Thursday, so it is subject to change. But in terms of Perrion Winfrey, don't cut him. Have him be on a short leash, but Andrew Berry needs to be on the lookout for a replacement. So I'm going to answer this question assuming Winfrey is still on the team while you're watching it, and I'll say this. If he wasn't on a short leash after everything that happened last year with being suspended by the team, being a healthy scratch for 2 weeks, and missing a game due to a concussion from riding a scooter into a pole, what kind of leash was he on? So he definitely, Andrew Berry, should be looking for a legit replacement if he's looking for a new defensive tackle on a rookie contract for the next 3 to 4 seasons. Because Jordan Elliott's entering the last year of his deal, and Tommy Togiai is not the future at the position. So, yeah, there needs to be some hard looks into, Elliott 2021, 22. Yeah, 2023, last one. So he definitely needs to maybe bump up defensive tackle in his priority list when it comes to the draft. Chef Ruben, thank you for the super chat. Michael Warnecki, when should the Browns draft a running back? I know the fun thing to say is there's so many good running backs late in the draft, just wait. That's true-ish. I don't know, Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook were both great backs. Derrick Henry too. They were second-round picks. So I only say that to say if the belief is you can find a great running back in round 5, sometimes you can. But for every hit, there are a couple of misses. If you don't believe me, go pick a random year and look at a draft, and you'll be like, never heard of any of those running backs. So when should the Browns draft one? They've got Nick Chubb for sure for 2023. I want to believe 2024, but it's not 100%. So maybe round 4 or round 5 again, like Jerome Ford. I definitely would not make it a third-round pick, though. Joshua Miller, Yahoo Sports, says trading for Deshaun Watson and giving him that contract is easily the worst decision the Browns have made in the past 7 years. Thoughts? Yahoo Sports is simply looking at this from a political angle and does not care about the production on the field whatsoever. If Deshaun Watson wins a Super Bowl for the Cleveland Browns, Yahoo Sports' title will be Browns Super Bowl with an asterisk because of Deshaun Watson. They are simply never going to be a fan of the Browns for this move, and that's that. But they are clowns and they are frauds for this idea of that being the worst move in the past 7 years. They're very lucky they didn't go back a little further, because if they did, a guy named Brandon Weeden would have definitely been a worse move. All right, Stephen Kwan's burner, love it. The Browns traded Troy Hill last year during the draft. Could they trade anyone this year? Very good question, because the Browns are always good for a trade, right? It definitely, at least it feels that way under the Andrew Berry era. So the popular name that everyone's probably thinking is Greg Newsome. There was some smoke, and then that smoke got put out. I don't think a Greg Newsome trade is going to happen at this time. If I had to actually pick someone, what about Jed Wills, right? What if the Browns decide we are not going to pick up his 5th-year option? So if that's the case, we've got him for 1 year left on his contract. Do we roll with him for our left tackle for one more season? Or do we flip him for a 3rd-round pick and draft a new tackle and have that guy be on a rookie contract for 4 more seasons? Not a horrible train of thought if you don't believe that Jed Wills is the future at left tackle and you don't want to pick up his 5th-year option. He was the 56th best tackle last year per PFF and an overall grade of 62.9. I think they will pick up his 5th year, but at this point, I'm kind of in the middle where it's like, I don't hate Jed Wills, but I'm definitely not one of the biggest Jed Wills defenders out there. I thought he got better last year when he wasn't dealing with nagging ankle injuries. So hopefully this year, all that's behind him, and he kind of has like a Caleb McGarry year from the Falcons, who was a first-round bust, it appeared, and then he was one of the best tackles in football last year. Now, let me know, would you trade Jedrick Wills for a 3rd-round pick? This is the pinned comment on today's show, so if YouTube sticks an ad break in a moment, take advantage of it and let me know your thoughts down below. Mac Predalis with a super chat. I think the Browns should trade up and grab Siaka Ika. Ika, the defensive tackle from Baylor, he transferred from LSU, is your prototypical Vita Vea nose tackle, run-stopping boulder of a human being who's not going to fill out the stat sheet, but he's going to free up linebackers to do their job. And when you look at this Browns defensive line, you've got that in Dalvin Tomlinson, although he's not just a complete run stopper. Like, Dalvin Tomlinson can do some business in the pass rush department as well. Ika, not so much. Another concern I have with Ika is he's not a 3-down player, which, then again, not many defensive linemen are, if I'm being fair. And also, he's somewhat regressed from 2021 to 2022 with Baylor. There needs to be some research and homework done on why that was. So I'm going to pump the brakes on trading up to get Ika. The Brown Tiger, do you think Barry would trade up to get Trent Simpson? He's a baller for sure. I know from experience. As always, screw the sucky squealers. I can agree with you on that last part. Trent Simpson, linebacker from Clemson. We can get you his bio up on the screen just a second here. But he, for the Clemson Tigers last year, 73 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. A very versatile linebacker. He doesn't necessarily jump out in any aspect of the game, but he also doesn't have one big lingering issue that can be exploited. He's mocked to go second, maybe slip into round 3. I don't think he'll be on the board when Cleveland's on the clock. So if they really want him, and they did have a pre-draft visit with him, they would probably have to move up and get him. If he's there, I'm sure they'll be delighted to see him on the board when they're on the clock. And when I think about this Browns linebacker room, they should be thinking not just ahead, because a lot of them are on one-year contracts, but also who's going to be the first man off the bench if an injury pops up, or if Walker or Taki is not ready to play week 1, as there's a very good chance both of those guys, or one of them at least, could start out on the PUP list. So who's going to be running first-team defense? They've got to think about this position a bit more than just your average fan is, because it is razor thin at the moment with 3 guys who all ended the year last season on injured reserve. Now, speaking of the sucky squealers, if you think Kenny Pickett is a bust, subscribe right now for no reason other than you hate the Steelers and you want to see them finish closer to pick number 1 than pick 32 next season. Ideally, they finish pick 3. That way they can't trade out and get a big king's ransom like the Bears did, but just outside of getting maybe the best player or 2 in the draft. So if you want to see the Steelers fail, hit that sub button. Lil Beam, what's going on? Besides Jalin Hyatt and Keeanu Benton, who would you like to see in a Browns uniform in 2023 from the draft? Good question. What about a guy like the 3rd or 4th round? I love Jamie Robinson, the safety from Florida State. He's just an aggressive ball hawk safety who has downhill tendencies. Yeah, he's got to refine some things here and there, but what player in day 2, or really what player in this draft outside of like 1 or 2 guys, doesn't need a lot of coaching to do? But Robinson is definitely someone. I have heard that despite trading for Elijah Moore, they still want to add more speed to this wide receiver room. Josh Downs from UNC, he's probably not going to be there in round 3, so that would require a trade up. Maybe Tyler Scott from Cincinnati. Those could be some guys to watch out for, but I'll go with Robinson as my number 1, not overall player, but I know that the Browns could get him, and I would love for them to draft him. Soul Train, send Winfrey and a draft pick to the Giants for Dexter Lawrence. I know that, what do they call him? D-Law or whatever, he is not showing up to, not OTAs, because that's not just yet, but off-season workouts and whatnot, conditioning and things like that, as he's sort of in a contract holdout. Yeah, you'd have to send Winfrey, a draft pick, and a lot of Texas Roadhouse gift cards to get Dexter Lawrence from the Giants. So that's a bit of a pipe dream right there, Soul Train, but I like where your head's at. All right, before we get to the rest of the questions on today's show, speaking of the NFL Draft, get the official Cleveland Browns 2023 NFL Draft hats today at chatsports.com/Browns hat. I put that link in the comments and the description to make it easy for everyone. So wear the same hat that, who knows, maybe Josh Downs, Jalin Hyatt, Keeanu Benton will be wearing in less than 2 weeks from now in Kansas City. Scarehouse Tim Zombie, what's your all-time Browns draft bust list, Matt? I can say confidently and positively that I was never high on Brandon Weeden because he was a dinosaur, and Justin Gilbert because he was a corner from the Big 12 where they play no defense. I was high on Johnny Manziel. I mean, I don't know if that's something to be ashamed of, but yeah, I was pretty up on Manziel. As for Trenton Richardson, you got a first-round pick out of him. So, is that really a bust? Kind of flipped into a first anyway, so kind of look at it both ways right there. Rickety splits. If the Browns move on from Winfrey, who could they sign to replace him? Well, potentially by the time you're watching this could have already been done, or maybe it's not done, but it could happen soon. It's a very fluid situation right now with Winfrey. But a possible replacement, how about a guy we talked about last summer? Akiem Hicks, longtime New Orleans Saint and Chicago Bear. He was signed by the Bucs last year, and he put up 22 tackles in 11 games, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Akiem Hicks last season, when he was healthy, he was a pretty productive member for the Bucs defense, and he would sort of fit that same type of mold for Perrion Winfrey. He's a bit bigger, but he's also a really good pass rusher as well, and not just a nose tackle or run stopper. So, like Winfrey can get after the quarterback, this could be a fun name to keep an eye on for. So, what say you? Will Perrion Winfrey be on the 2023 Week 1 roster, right? Will he make the 53-man roster? Give me your best predictions, yes or no. Lil Beam next up. When I thought Newsome requested a trade, I made a trade idea. So we give him to Detroit. Detroit receives 2023 third-round pick, number 74, and Greg Newsome, and the Browns get 2023 second-round pick, number 48. This is almost a carbon copy of the Elijah Moore trade. It's just Newsome instead of Moore. I think Newsome actually has more value than Elijah Moore. Greg Newsome has been a starter for 2 seasons. Elijah Moore, there's a lot to buy in and believe on, but I think Greg Newsome has shown you more about who the player he is, and he just needs to be moved out of the nickel position. So I don't think you have to give up a third-round pick. I think you could flip a first-round pick if we are actually entertaining the idea of trading Newsome, and you could either get for sure a third straight up or maybe a late second, and you don't send a third back over, but you send like a 5th or a 6th. That way the team doesn't lose a draft pick and they gain Greg Newsome, and the Browns just move up from a day 3 pick to round number 2. But at the end of all this, I don't think he's getting traded. Last question coming in from AFX Apocalypse. I really hope we get Andre Carter III. What do you think about it? And I hope Stetson Bennett comes to the Browns. As for Andre Carter, I've seen him go round 2 in mock drafts. I see Dane Brugler from The Athletic have him as a 5th-round guy. He is a very athletic, versatile player that you can bump all over the defense, and he is a great character and overall football mind to add to your locker room. So I've got no real issues with drafting him. As for Stetson Bennett, dude ain't getting drafted. I can guarantee you that much. Hit me up on Twitter, by the way, for more Browns coverage at Matthew Petey. That link's in the comments and the description. Follow me if you have not already, as I'm always tweeting about the Browns and the NFL.